you always hear great things about, and when you arrive, you're not disappointed. They really do have miles of dikes that hold back the North Sea from their low, flat lands. Since 1830, 1,000 square miles have been reclaimed. Windmills are scattered across flowering countryside near charming villages built in the distinctive Dutch architecture. Amsterdam is a fabulous city, lively, yet has more canals than Venice. The people are friendly, and English is considered their second language. So Holland is a place that meets high expectations, and the same is true for their Formula One Grand Prix event. When people attend a championship GP, they expect international teams and drivers to challenge one another using the finest race machinery possible on a demanding track that requires perfect performances from men and equipment. Well, the Dutch Grand Prix fills the bill, especially with the Zandvoort circuit, which is considered one of the most challenging on the world tour. Second-gear hairpins, long 200-mile-an-hour straights, flat-out sweeping bends that test the driver's courage and ability to sense the most delicate changes from both car and track. A mistake here is usually a big one, especially in the appropriately named Tarzan corner. It's located at the end of the extra-long pit straight, along which the cars accelerate for nearly a mile. Many a brave battle has been won and lost during only 2.5 seconds of super hard braking from 200 miles an hour down to 60 for this on-the-limit curve. Recently, the corner has produced 3 spectacular accidents, with drivers hitting the Tarzan tire wall head-on at more than 150 miles an hour. Miraculously, all emerged from their totally shattered cars without serious injuries. Last year, many of the people felt that Alain Prost lost the World Championship right here by trying too hard to squeeze past Nelson Piquet, eliminating them both from the '83 Dutch event. Even Grand Prix titles can be claimed or granted by this most difficult and favorite passing place. At Tarzan Corner, it's the cars and drivers' ability to stop or de-accelerate that secures victory. Precise judgment to the millisecond for when to put on the binders is the key. A second too soon, and 2 cars will streak past. A second too late, and you're spinning in the sand. This is John Bizignano with Simon Taylor, about 20 miles directly west of Amsterdam in the beautiful seaside town of Zandvoort, Holland. We'll be your hosts for this ESPN Auto Racing 84 coverage of the Dutch Grand Prix for Formula One race cars. During the next 90 minutes, Simon and I will be presenting the complete Grand Prix story, including driver interviews, technical reports, all the latest F1 updates, plus the fantastic Grand Prix race action. So please join us after these short messages when we return with hopefully the lucky 13th round of the 1984 season and a detailed look at the black magic of Formula One. We'll be right back. About the most powerful turbo motors, sophisticated suspensions, stiff chassis, effective brakes, and the latest aerodynamics. But all these features have only one medium of contact with the road, the 4 black patches where the tires meet the track. Even a driver's style and ability is subject to how well his tires are working and how well he manages them throughout an event. When all these components are in harmony with the tires, things turn to magic. Lap times fall, and victory can be made to look easy. Getting the tires right is the black magic of Formula One. Currently, there are 3 major tire companies gripped in a technical war for supremacy over the black magic. So far, it's been Michelin's year, scoring 10 wins for 12 starts via teams Brabham and McLaren. Goodyear, with 19 years of F1 experience, has pulled out all the stops to regain the mountaintop they enjoyed for so long. Pirelli has had moments of glory, but they need a strong team to carry through the effort. Basically, each of these manufacturers supply 3 kinds of F1 tires. Because Formula One races in the rain, wet tires are essential. The wets. Now, as you can see, this tire has a very deep tread pattern, deep grooves. What that allows for is the water to be expelled from underneath the tire, even at high speed going down the track. That helps stop aquaplaning. The compound is extremely soft, so soft that it'll actually heat up on a cold day and flooded track conditions. The problem with that is if the track begins to dry out, this tire will be finished in just a few laps. And that's where the intermediate comes in. Again, another wet tire, but designed for partially dry and wet conditions. Deep grooves to stop the aquaplaning, but more rubber to put on the road and create more grip. The intermediate will actually last a complete Grand Prix race distance. The Racing Slick. This is the tire that does all the work. As you can see, there's no tread design whatsoever, no grooves. If there was a tread here, that wouldn't be rubber touching the ground, that would be an airspace. And the whole principle of this tire is to put as much sticky rubber compound in contact with the track as possible. Now, they come in about 5 different categories for the different circuits and current track conditions, and that is where the selection becomes extremely important. The qualifier. As you can see, it is of the slick type race design with no treads, and the compound is extremely sticky. In fact, as you can see, it picks up virtually everything it comes in contact with. Now, each driver is given 2 sets of these tires for each qualifying session, and he must do his best lap in only 2 or 3 tries. After that, the tire will be completely gone. That's a dangerous situation for most drivers to be in. Now, the reason for the rear tires to be wider than the front is because the back of the car takes about 65% of the weight. As you can see, the engine is located in the rear. Also, under acceleration, if the tire was more narrow, it would just spin going down the track. Very dramatic, but not the quick way of doing it. The centrifugal force of cornering is mostly generated at the rear of the car. So the wider the tire, the more sticky rubber compound you have touching the surface of the track. Hopefully, the black magic begins by selecting the proper tires for the track's surface and general conditions. This is one of the most important judgment calls a driver, team manager, and their tire engineer must make throughout a Grand Prix weekend. Nothing is given more in-depth consideration, because if you're not right on the tires, all the other settings are useless. We asked Derek Warwick, driver of Team Renault, about the problem. How important are the tires to the success of a Grand Prix weekend?
Oh, very much so. Probably the single most important thing of the complete makeup of the car, because in the race situation, if you don't pick the right tire, you have to end up either pit stopping or just struggling on for the duration of the race. As for qualifying, we generally use what's known as a one-lap qualifier, and you do your one-time lap, and after that the tire is completely finished. And you get two sets of tires. So normally the grid positions are set with 4 one-lap specials.
What do you think of that system? First of all, it's a bit dangerous, and second, it's difficult to have one lap be your absolute quickest.
That's right. I mean, every driver likes to get into a rhythm and do 3 or 4 laps, and then he can get his ultimate out of himself. But as far as the one-lap specials are concerned, the tires can make up for more than what the driver can. You get so much grip in that one lap that it way outlays any other possibility of using a tire that's maybe good for 4 or 5 laps. Even though you can put a better lap together, the tire will just produce so much grip that you have to use the qualifier.
Derek, once you've made the choice, you still have to manage the tires throughout the race. What's that process like?
Sometimes very difficult. Like my last race in Austria, we actually chose the wrong tires, and after about 8 laps I started to blister the left rear, and I could see it in the mirrors, and you just have to sit there for as long as possible and see the blisters growing bigger and bigger, hoping to get over a certain distance so you can come in, change tires again and get to the finish, because you obviously don't want 2 pit stops.
That can be a bit of a disturbing situation to sit there, sometimes at 180 miles an hour plus, and watch your tires slowly falling away on you.
Well, you know, it's down to you choosing the wrong tires in the first place, so I suppose you have to bear it up when it actually happens to you. In Austria it was quite hairy because you have some very fast corners, 170, 180 mile an hour corners, and when you know you have a blister, it's sometimes very difficult to go into that corner as fast as you normally would.
There's really very few tire failures nowadays. Sometimes you pick something up on the track which will cause it to deflate. But have you ever had an accident because of a tire failure?
No, never. I've blamed the tires many times, but never. Yes, very easy. No, I mean, the technology that the tire companies have nowadays, I think they've overcome any kind of problem of disintegration during the course of a lap. The only thing you get, as you say, is hit some debris and get a puncture.
Little is left to magic in the design, construction, development, testing, and racing of a Grand Prix tire. We talked to Lee God, manager of international racing for Goodyear, about their tremendous Formula One effort. Lee, what's involved in developing a new race tire?
Well, John, it's a matter of experience first. Our engineers, of course, have some sort of an experience in what they need and what they would like to have. Compounds are mixed maybe like a cake. They try different ingredients, different amounts of certain ingredients, different constructions, different stiffness of sidewalls, and so on. So whenever our engineers think they have a better idea, they'll write what we call the specs back in the office, build the tire, and of course all this takes approximately a week or maybe 10 days. Build the tire, we have to ship it to the racetrack and put it on the racetrack and compare it against something proven ahead of time, and it's a continuing operation.
So the real testing actually comes on track?
There's a lot of testing done in the office and machines back in the factory, but the real test is always at the track. In other words, it's got to show on the track.
Theory moving into practice.
Yes, it's a combination of theory, and theory has a lot to do with it, but the results on a track is the only criteria you go by.
Ali, you have a tremendous logistical program here that goes with your racing setup. How many tires do you bring to a racetrack?
Well, this year we're bringing probably 1,100 to 1,200 tires. We have 12 cars we're supporting. This includes qualifying tires and rain tires. We make them all in Akron, Ohio, and unfortunately most of the races are in Europe, South America, or Africa, so it's a tremendous logistic expense and job getting them to the right place at the right time.
Are those all air freighted then, right from Akron?
Air freight bill is horrendous. I mean, we're supporting some airlines, I'm sure.
Well, you must have great marketing rewards then. Do you think it pays off in a marketing concept?
I think it does, certainly. Especially here in Europe, where the people are so proud of their cars and tires. Most tires are round and black, and you can't say much about them unless you can prove or say they've done this or they've done that, they've beaten this guy or that fella, they're so fast. Yes, it's definitely rewarding. It's the only reason we're doing it.
Formula One Black Magic comes in two categories, good and bad. A team's racing tires can be their strongest or weakest link in the chain to Grand Prix success. Stay with us. After these short messages, Simon Taylor will return with the qualifying story here at Zandvoort.
We're in the last quarter of the 1984 Grand Prix season now, and here at Zandvoort, championship points are absolutely crucial for the two men who are fighting over the championship title. Niki Lauda and Alain Prost. Both of them drive for McLaren. But the man that neither of them can ever forget is Nelson Piquet. The Brabham driver is always very fast. For a lot of the season, he's been the fastest. Of the 3 Grand Prix races that he's finished without trouble, he's won 2 and finished second in the other. His chances of winning the championship title are now almost finished, but he wants pole position. And the battle throughout qualifying for who will get the pole between Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet is as good as any we've seen this season. In the first day of qualifying, Piquet and the Brabham were easily fastest. Prost set a stunning time on Saturday. Piquet went out to try to better it, but spun off the track. And it was when the news of that spin came through that the little Frenchman knew that the pole position was his.
Alain Prost in his 4th pole position during the Grand Prix season here in Zandvoort. Alain, you were a 1.5 seconds faster today than yesterday. Where did you find that much time in this afternoon's qualifying?
Yesterday we chose some very small turbos on the engine, and I think it was good for the delay, but not enough power. So for qualifying, where we need to put much more boost, we changed today to a bigger turbo and with a fresh engine, it was much better.
Alain, do you enjoy trying to go out and get the last tenth of a second out of your car and the qualifying process? Do you like that?
Yeah, I like that. But this morning I tried to set up the car for a race, and I chose some many tires, many race tires. So I did not know this afternoon if I was able to do the pole position or not. So I was very happy to get it because it's important for the race. That means my car is almost perfect.
Alain, your teammate, Niki Lauda, took over the World Championship lead in the last event. You're going to push harder now than ever before to try and get 9 more points. Huh?
I have to push a bit harder, but it's not a big problem because I like to push hard, and I don't
natural.
that's natural. I don't like to stay like I did for the last few races. And even, you know, I was leading the race in Brands, and I was in a good position in Zellweg. But I have to push a bit harder now. It's better for my character.
Are you pleased with the track here in Zandvoort? Last year, you had some problems here. Do you have a reoccurring nightmare about that? Or?
It's no problem for me. It's a new year, and I think it was more a problem for all the people who on the track than for me. I mean, it's only an accident like everybody and every driver gets sometimes. Maybe I did a mistake, maybe not, but I did not try to find some excuse. I lost the race, and I don't think I lost the championship because of this race. Everybody's reminds this race, but I don't care. That's another one, and I want to win it.
Well, tomorrow we hope that the great battle that you and Nelson had last year reoccurs, but all the way to the checkered flag. That would be best.
Thank you. I think with Nelson it's no problem, and I hope to finish the race anyway, even if he's winning the race.
You're going to go play some golf now. Is that a relaxing way for you to spend your Saturday afternoon?
I need to relax because it's more and more difficult for me. Everybody, and especially the French press, French people are waiting for the first champion, and I have more and more pressure, so I need to relax. But I'm in a very good shape.
Despite his spin on Saturday, Nelson Piquet's Friday time was still good enough to put him on the front row of the grid with Alain Prost, although the Brazilian was no doubt disappointed not to have the pole.
Nelson, you were trying very hard at the end there.
Well, I was starting with a car that was low on the power, and in the end we went for another car. And I didn't have much chance because I spun in the second corner of the lap and finished everything.
Was that going out with absolutely cold tires and trying to get them heated up as soon as possible, or?
No, it's normal. No, you have to do the tires good enough for one lap, and if you don't do it, that's it. And the beginning of the lap, always the tires a little bit cold, but if you don't do that, before you finish the lap, you finish the tire.
Of course, you and Alain Prost will be starting right next to each other tomorrow, and everyone remembers your battle here last year. How do you look back on that now, a year later?
Well, now he's in a better position.
Right.
He's much in front of the championship. You still have a good chance to win the championship. I don't. And I have nothing to lose. No, I try to do the race to win the race.
Is it harder to keep your enthusiasm up for going as hard as you can when you know the championship is out of your grasp?
No, it's completely opposite, because when you don't have the championship in the balance, and you can try much harder. You can even if you lose a race, you don't lose the championship. If you make a mistake, you don't lose the championship. You lose only one race.
So you can actually take more chances than if every race was going for the championship.
Oh, yeah, not doubt.
Do you enjoy that position?
Yes.
You do. You like going out and just taking every last second of every last lap possible.
Sure.
What about this circuit, Nelson?
Well, it's every year it suits the car very well, suits the Brabham very well, and I've been driving, doing very good races, but it's not the best circuit.
So Prost's McLaren and Piquet's Brabham on the front row for the Dutch Grand Prix here at Zandvoort, a recipe for a great race. News of the rest of the starting grid after this short message. If there were a consistency award for Grand Prix racing, the man who'd probably be winning it this year is the Italian Elio De Angelis with his Renault-powered Lotus. He's scored championship points in 9 out of the 12 Grand Prix so far this year, and he still has an outside chance of winning this year's title if the McLaren men run into a real mar of bad luck. This is Peter Waugh, the Lotus team manager, who's just announced that the brilliant young Brazilian Ayrton Senna will join Lotus next year. Nobody knows whether he's replacing Elio De Angelis or Nigel Mansell. They're still talking. But Elio De Angelis has got third position on the grid, ahead of the two Renaults. Derek Warwick, the Englishman, is once again marginally quicker than his teammate Patrick Tambay. But both the Renault drivers feel that their cars can still go faster, and they're not totally happy with their times. Warwick is currently 6th in the World Championship, but he's only scored points in 5 outings this year. So the Goodyear-shod Renault-powered Lotus is faster than both the Michelin-shod Renault-powered Renaults. And that's bound to mean an interesting battle during the race tomorrow.
3 out of the first 5 qualifiers are Renault-powered. Is that a problem on a power circuit like this, to know that they have the same exact engine or the same amount of power to deal with as you do?
Well, it shows that Renault is providing the same kind of equipment to all the teams, so I think it's a good thing, because it's a possibility to do a lot of development research, not only in your own team but also in all the different teams. Sometimes it could be I mean, you'd like to be the only one to use all that nice power, and but I mean, it's only fair. Renault is in racing for commercial reasons as well as sportive ones, and it's only fair that all the teams be capable of using the Renault power.
Can you see any difference in the chassis handling between the Lotus, which is Renault-powered, and your Renault? Do they have an advantage someplace else on the circuit?
Well, I think it's probably fairly close to chassis. I think the biggest difference is obviously that one is equipped with Goodyears and the other one with Michelins. Whether that is a handicap for them or an asset, I don't know. They seem to have been the one team on Goodyear this year to have been capable of really developing the product, to really cope with the product, the new radial Goodyears. But if you look at the grid, it's basically all the front runners are all Michelin runners.
Well, the Goodyears have shown extremely well in qualifying, but still, the Michelins this year have won so many of the races via Brabham and McLaren.
I think we could, I hope not, but I think we could see a Goodyear win here. It's a track where Goodyear always done very, very well. I remember last year we were in an extremely good position with them. Hopefully it's not going to be the case this year.
Last year you finished 2nd here in a very good race. Does that help psychologically to come back to a track like this where you've had a good previous finish and come back to do battle again?
Yes, it does, but you're really only coping with the equipment you have at the time you're doing the job. And if I was sitting in a Nozella, probably today I would not be very, very far up the grid, and I would have some problem for the race. So yes, in fact, I'm pretty happy and pretty optimistic for tomorrow, bearing in mind that I did miss the start last year and I should have won without that big mistake.
So you're right on schedule for your recovery plan from the broken ankle you talked about earlier.
Yeah, I thought that belt bag would have been a nice proof of that. When the two, I was with the leaders, and when there were two of them were wounded, and I was catching them pretty strongly and could have taken the lead probably and win the race. But in order to finish first, you must first finish, and it's been my problem this year, always a few miles from home.
Well, Niki Lauda, the current World Championship leader, not as quick in practice as his teammate Alain Prost. Prost on pole, Lauda back in 6th place on the grid. After various problems in practice, he was quick, but just not quick enough. And that'll no doubt be a point that's disappointed him. But we've seen Niki Lauda make storming starts from well down the grid in several races this year. And we'll have the full news of the race, of the Dutch Grand Prix here at Zandvoort, here on ESPN Auto Racing 84, after these short messages. Stay at Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix. It's round 13 of the long 16-race season, so we're into the final quarter of the World Championship now. And that battle between Alain Prost and Niki Lauda, the McLaren teammates, is becoming very close indeed. Meanwhile, Nelson Piquet, relaxed about the fact that he's almost bound to lose his 1983 championship title, can now settle down to the business of scoring some race wins. The huge crowd pours in mainly on foot, because the little seaside town of Zandvoort is one big traffic jam this weekend, and the best way to get to the track is to come by train and walk from the station. 27 cars on the grid, with local hero Hugh Rottengatter at the back, and Alain Prost, of course, with the McLaren at the front. The incredibly successful McLaren team have won 8 of the 12 Grand Prix so far this year. Alain Prost has won 4 of those 8. And after so nearly winning the World Championship last year and being beaten by this man, Nelson Piquet, he is absolutely determined to make 1984 his year. Piquet just wants to win races. He knows that the championship title is virtually gone for him. Elio De Angelis, however, still has an outside chance. And so, on the third row of the grid, he's going to want to chalk up more points and perhaps get his first win of the year with the Renault-powered Lotus. Derek Warwick, a year which at the beginning looked as though it was going to be a wonderful one for him, but which since has been plagued by unreliability and bad luck. He's still 6th in the championship on 23 points. His teammate Patrick Tambay just behind him, 5th quickest. The amiable Frenchman, one of the more experienced men in Grand Prix racing, and only 9 points to his name so far this year. And 6th on the grid is the legendary Austrian Niki Lauda, 23 Grand Prix wins under his belt now and more championship points than any driver in history, and he's the current World Championship leader. And as the cars go out on their final warm-up lap, let's look at the rest of the grid. On row 4, the 2 Williams Hondas both together. So the Dallas winner Keke Rosberg is 7th, and Jacques Lafitte, his best grid position for some time, 8th. On the 5th row, Michele Alboreto in the faster of the 2 Ferraris, but neither of the Ferraris showing particularly well here in practice, and Théo Fabi, Nelson Piquet's teammate, in Brabham number 2. Then it's Thierry Boutsen in one of the Arrows BMWs, and Nigel Mansell in the 2nd Lotus Renault. Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian who'll be with Lotus next year, is on the 7th row with Andrea de Cesaris in the Ligier. Then it's René Arnoux Ferrari and Winkelhock's ATS, Cheever and Patrese in the Alfa Romeos, Seuras Arrows and Haino's Ligier, Ginzani in the Azella, Dr. Jonathan Palmer in the Skoal Bandit Ram, then Gartner, the Austrian, in his Azella, Stefan Beloff's Tyrrell, Stefan Johansson's Tyrrell, Philippe Alliot, the Frenchman, in the other Ram, and right at the back, the Dutchman, Hugh Rottengatter, with his Spirit Heart painted orange, Dutch racing colours, especially for this race. Ahead of them, 71 laps of a 2.64-mile circuit that needs a strong engine, strong brakes, and a strong head. The starting procedure, as ever, a red light, followed by a green, which will unleash thousands of horsepower onto this circuit, which is so often slippery with the sand that's blown off the dunes onto the track. Tyre wear, often a problem for that reason. There's the flag across the back, which says that it's all clear. There is the red light, there is the green light, and Prost is first to move, but Piquet is making a good start. Piquet is alongside Prost. Piquet is ahead of Prost. And down into Tarzan Corner for the first time, Patrick Tambay has also made a good start with the Renault. It's Tambay 3rd, it's Prost 2nd, it's Nelson Piquet in the lead, Elio De Angelis is up there in 4th place, Derek Warwick is 5th, then it's the 2 Williams Hondas of Rosberg and Lafitte in 6th and 7th places. But look at this start. That's the current world champion carrying the number 1, as the world champion always does, Nelson Piquet in the Brabham. He's moving ahead, and there's problems already for the German Manfred Winkelhock. Winkelhock coming to a complete halt there on the rise out of the hairpin behind the pits, the Hugenholz-Bocht, and as Winkelhock sorts out his problems, the rest of the field are streaming away, and Niki Lauda once again has not made a good start. There is McLaren number 8, trapped in the traffic. I make it down in about 10th place. They're still trying to get Winkelhock going. Winkelhock has indeed managed to restart his car, and meanwhile the leaders are streaming into the Panorama Bocht at the back. Look at De Cesaris moving up alongside Cheever, and De Cesaris and Cheever have collided. A typical first lap schmozzle. De Cesaris driving down the grass, trying to get back onto the track. He's waiting for a gap in the traffic, in fact, and he's on the tarmac once more. And meanwhile, the leaders already crossed the start-finish line, with Prost still second, Tombe still third, De Angelis is fourth. Up into fifth place now comes Keke Rosberg, ahead of Derek Warwick, who is sixth. But still the leader is the Brabham, Nelson Piquet. 1.5 laps gone, 69.5 to go, and we'll have more excitement from the Dutch Grand Prix after this short message. Nelson Piquet at the front in the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. Alain Prost in pursuit of championship points and in pursuit of Piquet the leader. Leading a tremendous queue of cars for third place, it's Patrick Tambay in the Renault. But the man to watch is Niki Lauda, the current World Championship leader in McLaren number 8, because he is moving up. Sixth on the grid, he made a shocking start. He's now ninth, he's behind Michele Alboretto's Ferrari. So there are a lot of fast men in front of him, and he's got a seemingly impossible task to get up to his teammate Alain Prost in second place and start to dispute this championship point situation. Meanwhile, on the long, fast, slightly downhill start-finish straight, up to 200 miles an hour, and then on the brakes they go for the Tarzan corner at the end, and having a little look at the inside line there, seeing if he could pass the Black Lotus of Elio De Angelis, was Keke Rosberg. So Rosberg seems to be moving up in the Williams Honda. Here is Piquet the leader, there is Prost in second place. Over the brow goes Prost, there is Tambay third, De Angelis fourth, Rosberg fifth and Warwick sixth. A tremendous four-car battle for third place, through the sweeping left and right of the Hunzerug, over the brow, down to this corner, which is Schivlak, a tight right-hander. Then away from that into this chicane here, the Marlborough Bocht, which was introduced onto the very fast back straight section to slow the cars down before they get to the East Tunnel, which is here, and then into the Panorama Bocht. That's another slow right-hander. And it's the section after the Panorama Bocht which is so important. This sweeping brow followed by a long, long right-hander, Bossuit, there it is, because if you get Bossuit absolutely right, it can be worth another 5 miles an hour on the long straight down to the Tarzan hairpin, and that's where you've got to do your out-braking. This is Prost in second place. Prost currently more or less on his own, but there is Keke Rosberg going round the outside now of Elio De Angelis and taking fourth place. So De Angelis is demoted to fifth, Rosberg is fourth, Patrick Tambay is still third, and there's Piquet the leader. They're still only on their fourth lap, and Niki Lauda has got past Michele Alboretto's Ferrari, so Niki Lauda is now eighth, Alboretto down to ninth. It's still Jacques Lafitte seventh, it's Derek Warwick sixth, it's now Elio De Angelis fifth, it's now Keke Rosberg fourth, and there they go with De Angelis very, very close up to Piquet's choice of tyre compound was to go for a softer rubber than perhaps Alain Prost felt like risking. It may well be that Prost is determined not to wear out his tyres this early in the race, because an early charge can well leave you with the necessity of an early pit stop because you've worn your tyres out too fast. But there's no doubt that Piquet is absolutely dominating this race. He's able to take a nice, clear, lonely line into Tarzan, and that's not what Keke Rosberg can do. Rosberg absolutely twitching under braking as he forces the Williams Honda alongside Patrick Tambay there and goes into third place. So Rosberg has come storming up. He was seventh on the grid, he was fifth at the end of lap 1, and now at the start of lap 5 he's gone into third place. Niki Lauda, meanwhile, has taken another place because we've got Niki Lauda ahead of Jacques Lafitte. Niki Lauda is now seventh. So excitement all the way down the field in the Dutch Grand Prix, because we've got Piquet dominating, we've got Prost trying to stay in touch in second place, we've got Keke Rosberg going very, very hard indeed now up into third place, and we've got the dark horse Niki Lauda trying to make up time after his disastrous start, and he's already seventh. It was the Australian Grand Prix driver Alan Jones who won the World Championship for Williams back in 1980, who said that the specification for an exciting motor race was to have a great big long straight with a great big tight hairpin at the end of it. And that's exactly what we've got here at Zandvoort, and we always have a lot of overtaking at Zandvoort. The leaders now on this long straight. Rosberg now in third place. What's going to happen for fourth place now between Tombe and De Angelis? Because De Angelis is having a look at the inside. Tombe holds his braking very, very late. The Renault twitches just a little bit under braking, but Tombe holds his fourth place. De Angelis is still fifth. It's Derek Warwick in the other Renault sixth. And you've got a tiny glimpse just then of Nicky Lauda, who is seventh, and Lauda is now closing on Derek Warwick. So action, overtaking and battling all the way down the field, as we always seem to get here at Zandvoort. There'll be more excitement in the next few laps. Rejoin us here on ESPN Auto Racing 84 after this message. Here's this third place battle at Zandvoort with Rosberg, Tombe, De Angelis, Warwick, and Nicky Lauda is already on Derek Warwick's tail. There are the positions at the end of 5 laps, with 2.8 seconds already between Piquet and Prost. And there is Nicky Lauda moving up another place. Nicky Lauda has taken 6th place now from Derek Warwick, so Nicky Lauda already in the championship points, and this is a classic drive from the veteran Austrian, the twice world champion, who's been in Grand Prix racing for a decade now. And how much further will Nicky Lauda's charge be able to take him up the field? He's already leaving Derek Warwick behind. He's already closing on Elio De Angelis in the Renault-powered Lotus ahead of him. He's got De Angelis, Tombe and Keke Rosberg in front of him, and then it's his own teammate in second place, but there's a long, long way to go before Lauda can get up to his teammate. And remember, it's his teammate who's the man he wants to beat, because that's what the World Championship is all about. And Jacques Lafitte going well in 8th place. And look at Lauda having a go at Elio De Angelis under braking for Panorama. That's not a very good place to do it, because you have problems if you get alongside people there, as we saw with De Cesaris and Chiva, who had their bumping match on lap 1. Lauda decides to wait, but they're now in Bossuit, which is the long right-hander that leads to the start-finish straight, and we could be seeing Lauda have another go now. Look at the cars in the background. There's Rosberg, and there's Lauda coming out. Lauda alongside and through and past De Angelis, and he chops ahead of De Angelis, fits himself in between Tombe and De Angelis. So Lauda now 5th, Tombe still 4th, and Tombe now has the black Lotus no longer in his mirrors. He now has the red and white McLaren in his mirrors. Tombe out of the Hugenholtz hairpin, over the Hunsrück brow. Now what's Lauda going to do? Is he going to wait until the long straight before he tries to pick off his next victim, or is he going to try and do it earlier than that? Tombe closing on the car ahead of him, which is of course Keke Rosberg. There's Rosberg, there's Tombe, there's Lauda, there's De Angelis, there's Warwick, there is Lafitte. And we've got a caller at the pits already, and it's Alboreto, it's Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari. What a sorry season the great Ferrari team are having. Once more, Lauda has a think about the inside at Panorama, decides to do nothing about it, and Michele Alboreto out of his car and clearly out of the race. And now we're at Bossuit once more, and this is where Lauda must have a go at Tombe. He's tucked into the slipstream. He's going to use the suction of the air behind the Renault to try and give himself a little bit of extra pace, and he's alongside. He doesn't even wait for the braking area. He does it on sheer speed, and Lauda is easily past Tombe there. That wasn't an out-braking manoeuvre, that was a flat-out speed manoeuvre, and Lauda is now up to 4th place, and the next one on his shopping list is Keke Rosberg in the Williams Honda, who is 3rd. There's Rosberg, there's Lauda, there's Tombe, there's De Angelis, with Warwick slipping back a little bit, starting to lose contact with that 4-car trail, and Warwick currently running out of the championship points in 7th place. Down to the Marlboro Bocht goes Lauda, and out of the Marlboro Bocht he is pursuing that Williams all the time. We've still got the same position at the front of the field. Still it's the Braverman, the McLaren, but the McLaren we're now watching is Nicky Lauda's. There's Derek Warwick, with Lafitte now on his tail. Jacques Lafitte, the Frenchman who is rumoured to be retiring from Grand Prix racing at the end of this season. And now Rosberg has got the McLaren up close to him. Is Niki Lauda close enough on this lap to make a lunge? He's not. Rosberg isn't taking any chances. Rosberg takes a tight line, keeps the door firmly shut, but Niki Lauda decides to wait for another lap. And while we're watching that excitement, Piquet is reeling off the laps. There's the fastest lap so far, 1:20.9 for Nelson Piquet. And this early in the race, remember, their fuel tanks are still pretty full. Over the brow goes Tombe, De Angelis, Warwick on the curb, then Lafitte, and the next up, Ayrton Senna and Teo Fabi. So two of the young newcomers to Grand Prix racing going very well, just out of the championship points at the moment. And still Keke Rosberg has this third place, but not for long, I think. Niki Lauda on his tail as they go through the fast back section up into the Marlborough Box chicane. Lauda uncharacteristically just nudging the curb there. You normally seem to notice that however hard Niki Lauda is driving, he's always neat and tidy, always misses the curbs. Up to Panorama, Lauda doesn't even bother to try to get alongside the Williams this time. But now they're going over the brow towards Boswheat. Still the battle continues, and we'll be back with more Dutch Grand Prix action after this. Is still leading the Dutch Grand Prix here at Zandvoort, but he's in trouble. A great plume of oil smoke following the Brabham round, and clearly that car is leaking oil because Alain Prost's car in second place is slithering and sliding behind it. Still the third place battle goes on between Keke Rosberg and Niki Lauda. The circuit is obviously now very slippery with Piquet's oil. There is the oil flag, and there is Nelson Piquet parking his car, a sight we've seen so often this season. Nelson Piquet leading a Grand Prix only for his car to let him down. And so Piquet out, Alain Prost has gone through into the lead, so that caption already out of date because of Piquet's retirement. Rosberg is still hanging on to this second place, as it now is, and Nelson Piquet, crash helmet off, waving to the crowd, philosophically walking home. That's another Grand Prix that ends with a short walk back to the pits, and the mechanics will have to come and get the car later. And meanwhile, here is the battle for second place. It's going to find an easy way back past that McLaren. Once again, the McLaren was able to get by on power before they ever got to the braking area, and Lauda had obviously got a very good run out of Boswheat. And so now, once again, we have got the sight. Niki Lauda, the new second place man. Keke Rosberg is now third. Fourth, Patrick Tombe with the Renault. Fifth, Elio De Angelis with the Lotus. Sixth is Derek Warwick with his Renault. And already the speed of Alain Prost has taken him up to the back markers. That's Manfred Winkelhock, the German with the ATS that you saw having trouble at the very first lap of the race. Winkelhock now lapped. And so Alain Prost has now got to work his way through the traffic, and meanwhile Elio De Angelis is still trying to find a way past Patrick Tombe. It's Tombe now in fourth place, it's De Angelis fifth, Warwick sixth just behind, and Lauda has now set the fastest lap of the race, 1:20.594. Still this early, the cars are heavy with their weight of fuel, and that is still slower than Derek Warwick's existing lap record, 1:19.78, which he set in the Tolman 2 years ago. That, of course, in the days of ground effects, when these cars had even higher cornering speeds under the then permissible ground effect regulations than they do now. De Angelis, Warwick, Jacques Lafitte still behind, and Teo Fabi in the Brabham has moved up. Teo Fabi is on Jacques Lafitte's tail. There is Rosberg, now all alone because Lauda's gone away. Tombe, De Angelis. There, the Italian who has scored points so consistently this year, but he doesn't seem to be able to have the legs of the Renault. And remember, both cars using the same power unit, and it was De Angelis who was quicker than Tombe during practice. It's Tombe who's apparently able to stave off De Angelis during the race. There they are once more, this time the tail enders, particularly on this circuit, could well play quite a role later on. Alain Prost already working his way through the traffic, and Lauda with a new fastest lap under his belt. Niki Lauda is closing on Alain Prost. No doubt Alain Prost's pit signals are going to tell him just how close Niki Lauda is getting. And remember, no team orders between these two. They're both allowed to drive to win. We're denied a Prost-Piquet battle with the retirement of Piquet, which we are now able to confirm as being an oil leak. The engine became completely starved of oil, and Piquet was unable to go any further. We're starved of a Piquet-Prost battle, but I think we could be getting a Prost-Lauda battle. And still the De Angelis-Tombe battle, which is coming up now to lap the ram heart of Jonathan Palmer. They're on the start-finish straight there, and Palmer keeps nicely out of the way, but De Angelis is now having a go at Tombe. De Angelis tried to use the moment of the back marker to catch Tombe unawares. Tombe's too old and wily a hand for that. And behind Palmer, Warwick now under considerable pressure. Derek Warwick in the other Renault under considerable pressure from not only Jacques Lafitte now, but also Theo Fabi in the other Brabham. We'll have more ESPN Auto Racing 84 action from Zandvoort after these short messages. Welcome back to Zandvoort, Holland and the Dutch Grand Prix, where still we have this magnificent battle for the lead between the two McLarens. Alain Prost in the lead in number 7, Niki Lauda in second place in number 8. And remember that the two of them are neck and neck in the World Championship point standings with only 3 races to go after today's event. And already opened the gap out a little bit. On my stopwatch, as they passed me at the end of the previous lap, it was just over 2 seconds. And we've got another caller at the pits. This is Andrea de Cesaris' Ligier. We were just watching Francois Hainaut's Ligier. The Ligier is using the Renault turbo engine, as do the Lotuses, and rather slowly into the pits. Although the team are ready with the tyres, that looked like a pretty terminal pit stop to me. Meanwhile, Elio De Angelis doesn't really seem to have recovered from that moment when he got rudely bumped onto the grass by Manfred Winkelhock. Winkelhock long since gone. Patrick Tombe still ahead of him. They've got one of the Azellas, driven by the Austrian Joe Gartner, between them, so still De Angelis has not managed to get back onto terms with Patrick Tombe. And meanwhile, behind Elio De Angelis and starting to get onto terms with him is the other Lotus, number 12, that's Nigel Mansell. So Mansell has come storming up the field. That puts Mansell now into 6th place, ahead of the Ferrari of René Arnoux. And with the knowledge out in the paddock that Peter Warr of Lotus has already signed Ayrton Senna for the Norwich team next year, that means that one of these 2 Lotus drivers won't be staying with Lotus for next year. Already Nigel Mansell is alleged to be talking to Williams, but one of them will be moving on. And moving into the pits, Patrick Tombe. So Elio De Angelis' problem is solved for the moment anyway, because into the pits comes the Lotus of Patrick Tombe. Already his teammate Derek Warwick out of the race, and it's a tyre change. And I think Tombe stalled the engine there, but he's got it restarted again. And the tyre change is over. One rear wheel not finished. Now all 4 are done. Away goes Patrick Tombe back into the race on fresh rubber, but that has dropped him behind De Angelis and behind Nigel Mansell. Another caller at the pits there, that was Thierry Boutsen in the Arrows BMW. And we look now at Alain Prost, the leader. There's Thierry Boutsen having his tyre stop. And that's a shame that he's had to stop, because Boutsen had got up into 8th place behind René Arnoux. And so, with Patrick Tombe dropped down by his pit stop, we've now got this Lotus battle between Elio De Angelis and Nigel Mansell for 4th place it is now. And seeing these 2 black and gold Lotuses circulating round Zandvoort so close reminds those of us who've been coming to Grand Prix racing for some years of the 1978 situation when Mario Andretti, the American, the great American driver, won the World Championship for Lotus. And at this race in 1978, the great Swedish driver, Ronnie Peterson, followed Andretti loyally round. He could perhaps have overtaken him, but he didn't, because the agreement was that Andretti should go for the championship. And just 2 weeks later, Ronnie Peterson was fatally injured in the crash that he had at Monza. There's René Arnoux in the Ferrari. Now, Arnoux will have come up with Tombé's stop to 6th place. So René Arnoux, having had a hard and difficult race on a car that is clearly not competitive with the McLarens, with the Renaults, René Arnoux is now up into the championship points, running in 6th place. Coming through the traffic, Niki Lauda. Niki Lauda having just lapped Teo Fabi. Remember, he had a pit stop with Brabham number 2 after his spin. Ahead of Niki Lauda to be lapped, it's Stefan Johansson in the Cosworth-powered Tyrrell, one of only 2 non-turbocharged 3-litre cars which started this race. And Niki Lauda has got in these last few laps than has Niki Lauda, and by my unofficial hand timing, as Lauda goes past Johansson up to Panorama, I make the gap now 8 seconds. It did come down to as little as 1.2 seconds, and then Alain Prost replied with the fastest lap of the race, so far at least, and Prost does seem to have been able to pull away from Niki Lauda with some ease. The McLaren team hanging out their pit signals, telling both Prost and Lauda of the exact situation as Lauda goes into Tarsen with the back markers now behind him, and for the time being a clear road ahead. And let's not forget Dallas winner Keke Rosberg still running a solid 3rd in the Williams Honda. The Lotus is battling over 4th, the McLaren still at the head of the field, and still some way to go in the Dutch Grand Prix here at Zandvoort. We'll be back after these messages. Rejoin us at Zandvoort just as the Elio De Angelis-Nigel Mansell battle has come right up to Keke Rosberg in 3rd place. Mansell alongside De Angelis now, trying to go round the outside. He does it. Nigel Mansell goes round the outside of De Angelis, takes 4th place. Alain Prost, the leader, has caught them up to lap them. In fact, Prost does lap De Angelis and goes through. But now Nigel Mansell is on Rosberg's tail. We've got Eddie Cheever, the American, into the pits with the Alfa Romeo. He's getting a fresh set of tyres. Cheever currently running in 10th place. If this is a quick stop, he may get out without losing his place. He's had a quick shouted word with the team manager, Signor Tonti. It's off the jacks, and on goes the power. Spinning of the wheels out of the pits again, and now we're back with this wonderful 3rd place battle, which has the leader Alain Prost right in the middle of it. We've got 4 cars. Rosberg is 3rd, Mansell is 4th, Prost in the red and white McLaren is the leader, and Elio De Angelis, for whom all the activity on the last lap seems to have been a bit much, has dropped right back. So, 3rd man Rosberg. He's got 4th man Mansell on his tail. Mansell wants to find a way by. Mansell's having a look now, and Mansell goes through. Oh, and he almost loses it. The car weaving under braking. He very nearly lost the Lotus completely. And Rosberg has an attack back as they go through the curves behind the pits, down towards Hugenholtz, and now through also goes the leader, Alain Prost, who doesn't want to waste any time either. Nigel Mansell has come into 3rd place, but now Rosberg goes past Alain Prost again. But that looked very marginal for Nigel Mansell under braking. He was absolutely on the limit, and the Lotus gave a great big weave. There you see it, the back end of the car almost getting away from him. Rosberg leaves him enough room. Puff of flame from the exhaust pipe of the Williams Honda, and Mansell scrabbles through, but he was on the edge of losing the Lotus then. But he's got it, he's got his 3rd place. Rosberg is 4th. There is Riccardo Patrese jogging home. He, Cheever's teammate in the Alfa Romeo team, has obviously abandoned his car somewhere. Now Prost goes back ahead of Rosberg, but Mansell comfortable now in 3rd place. It's going to take Rosberg a while, if at all, to get back onto terms with the Flying Lotus driver. Nigel Mansell driving as well as we've seen him drive all season. Remember, he led the Monaco Grand Prix only to spin off in the rain. He led the Dallas Grand Prix only to brush a wall and eventually to collapse from heat exhaustion when trying to push his crippled car home over the finishing line. Nigel Mansell, a driver who never ever gives up, very determined, very hard-headed driver indeed. And I wonder how he felt passing Keke Rosberg then, because he must know, if he has signed for Williams, as is rumoured, that Rosberg is probably going to be his teammate, his team number one next year. Now Prost re-establishes the situation by lapping Mansell. Mansell lets him go, and that means that Alain Prost has now lapped the entire field except his own teammate Niki Lauda, and he's now in a distant second place. Meanwhile, Elio De Angelis seems to have found some more pace, and he has brought his Lotus right up to fourth man Keke Rosberg, so Rosberg, having lost third, is now under pressure for fourth place from Elio De Angelis. De Angelis once again having a reliable race. So often he's brought that Lotus to the flag, so often he's scored championship points, and remember, he is still in third place in the points table. A good finish here could just keep his championship points alive. And Eddie Cheever coming into sight now. Eddie Cheever, you'll remember, has just had a pit stop for fresh tyres. He's a lap behind these cars, but he's now caught them up very fast indeed, obviously helped by the fact that his rubber is fresh. This late in the race, no doubt the tyres on Rosberg's Williams and on De Angelis' Lotus are getting pretty tired. Cheever, despite that pit stop, currently holding 9th place. And I think he's looking for a way past De Angelis. I don't think he's going to be happy with staying behind him for much longer. Through the sand dunes, through Boswheat, down onto the long straight, and Rosberg leads De Angelis, leads Cheever, and De Angelis weaving from side to side, but not close enough to get right under the rear wing of the Williams where he can get the full tow. You can get a good slipstream tow under there, even though it can make your car much less stable in the corners because the front aerofoils aren't getting the maximum amount of air. Out of the Hugenholzbocht, and Cheever takes a closer line. Cheever is poised to take the Lotus under acceleration, which he does on the Hunzerug, and immediately pulls away. And that orange car parked is the Dutchman Hugh Brottengatter, who's been going around at the tail of the field in the Spirit Heart, with his engine sounding as though it's firing on 2 or 3 cylinders at the most. But Brottengatter's car now finally stops, and we'll be back with the closing stages of the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort here on ESPN Auto Racing 84 after this short message. Drama in the closing stages of the Dutch Grand Prix, because the Belgian driver Thierry Boutsen is coming to a halt just beneath our commentary box here with his right-hand front wheel barely still attached to the car. And it happened on the long 200-mile-an-hour straight. It could have been very nasty indeed, but Boutsen got the car stopped. He's out of the car. What happened was that René Arnoux made a very late decision to dive into the pits with the Ferrari right under Boutsen's nose. Boutsen simply couldn't avoid him and clouted him, but he's stopped. Arnoux is into the pits for fresh tyres. He's out again, and we're now watching the leader, Alain Prost, as Eddie Cheever once more walks away from his car, the American who's such a hard trier, who so often has retired from Grand Prix races this year, the American who lives in Rome in Italy, walks back to the pits. And here's Niki Lauda, the second place man, now over 20 seconds behind leader Alain Prost, and clearly the Austrian has decided to be content with 6 points for second place and not to try to wear his car out. And René Arnoux seems to have worn his out, because Arnoux, on his fresh Goodyears, just out of the pits on his fresh tyres, has come to a halt with the Ferrari. A marshal pushes it onto the verge, and one can only speculate whether Arnoux' trouble stems from that collision with Thierry Boutsen when he dived into the pits. Certainly the two cars hit pretty hard, and Arnoux slowly, wearily gets out of the car, and he is another driver who's going to walk home back to the pits watching as he does so these irresistible McLarens reeling off the closing laps. This is Niki Lauda over the brow towards Boswheat, and that is Alain Prost at the far end of the straight through Tarzan as his teammate comes into the straight. And Nigel Mansell has unlapped himself on Prost. He's now running ahead of Prost, still in a comfortable third place, but the fourth place man is in the pits. That is Keke Rosberg. After such a hard drive, he's in the pits. It can't surely be tyres this late in the race. They're changing the tyres automatically, but I would suspect that the problem is worse. I can't think that Rosberg would have come in that late just for tyres, and indeed he undoes the life support system, and out of the car comes Keke Rosberg, and that will have promoted Elio De Angelis, who, despite all his efforts to place, the Teo Fabi Brabham, the only Brabham remaining in the race, Teo Fabi up into fifth place, and our sixth man now, our new sixth man will be Patrick Tambay, who's been making up his time valiantly after that pit stop for fresh tyres so long ago. And this is the last lap. This is the 71st and final lap as Alain Prost crosses the start-finish line just ahead of Joe Gartner in the Azella, through Tarzan for the last time, taking it gently and smoothly. He's got all the time in the world because his lead is enormous, now 24 seconds by our unofficial hand timing over Niki Lauda, his own teammate, and almost a lap ahead of the man who should finish third, Nigel Mansell. This is going to be Alain Prost's fifth victory this year. It's going to be McLaren's ninth victory this year, and it is going to clinch without any doubt, with 3 races still left to run, the Constructors' Championship title for the McLaren team. A great reward for all the work by Ron Dennis. Time. The track oily, but the pace now relaxed as Prost comes over the brow, down to Boswheat, through that long, long right-hander that leads onto the straight for the final time as he comes into sight here onto the start-finish straight. The checkered flag is waiting for Alain Prost. Alain Prost comes down over the start-finish line. The McLaren mechanics are in the road showing their delight. Alain Prost shows his with a rather more nonchalant and restrained wave to the crowds at Tarzan, and Niki Lauda comes through to more jubilation from the McLaren team. That's the third McLaren 1-2 this year. Alain Prost the winner, Niki Lauda in second place, closing to within 10 seconds at the end. Nigel Mansell third for Lotus, De Angelis fourth for Lotus, Teo Fabi's Brabham is fifth, and Patrick Tambay comes home sixth in the Renault. In the championship points, therefore, Alain Prost closes to within 1.5 points of Niki Lauda, but Niki Lauda retains the lead, and Elio De Angelis the only other driver with even a theoretical chance of beating them in the 3 remaining races. And in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren's total means they're already the champions. ESPN Auto Racing 84 will be back with John Bisignano talking to the winner after this short message.
Fifth win of the 1984 season. Alain, a fantastic start. You and Nelson got away very cleanly. How strong did he seem in the opening laps?
I was careful, you know, and Nelson shows some softer tires than me, same as Niki. So I had to be careful at the beginning because I had harder tires, but I did not want to push hard to get him because the race was long, and I knew that he tried to push hard to go away. So I was just waiting, and when Niki was just behind me, I had to push a bit harder, but everything was perfect today. There's nothing to do against me today.
Niki got within 3 seconds of you. Of course, you were aware of that from your pit signs and so forth, and your mirrors.
No, I had a big problem because they showed me Rosberg plus 17 and Niki plus 3, but I was sure that Niki was behind Rosberg. So I went a bit more slow. I said it's no problem, 17 seconds lead, it's no problem. And I've seen in my mirrors and Niki was behind me. So I had to push harder after that, but it was no problem, I was much quicker.
And at the same time, you were having some problems with traffic just when he was close.
I had some traffic, that was a big problem for me.
Now, some of the cars were running out of fuel at the end, having to run that hard. Were you worried about your fuel consumption?
I was worried a little bit, but I had 24 seconds Nicky, so the end of the race was very slow for me, so I had no problem. I think I have no problem because we have no gauge on the car.
It could come as a surprise, that problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The fact that you're 1.5 points behind in the championship now, that's still a heck of an improvement over last weekend, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, 1.5 point is nothing, you know. I have to be in front of Nicky the next race, and it's no problem. It's like if we were equal. So I think still 3 races, everything can happen.
How'd your golf game go yesterday? Did you win?
No, I play so bad at the moment. I have many things to sing, and I don't play so well.
Well, it seemed to have worked for you here, though. It must have helped a little bit to relax.
Yeah, it's good for relaxing, but I have to think about Formula One, and it's difficult to think about golf at the same time.
This has been John Bizignano and Simon Taylor. We've enjoyed bringing you this ESPN coverage of the Dutch Grand Prix. Thanks for being with us. Please watch your local listings for more ESPN Auto Racing 84 as we move from the seaside of Holland to the foot of the Alps in the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. Please be with us. So long from Zandvoort, Holland.